Hi, this is Mary Jo Tinlin from the Teaching Your Toddler Show. I am so excited today because have a milestone show for you. It is one that I've been dying to talk about for years, and it's a subject that is very important to new moms, young moms, all moms, and it's potty training. Our guest today, Kim West, is an expert in this area, which she actually calls potty coaching. She's also known as the Sleep Lady, and she hosts a podcast called the Gentle Parenting Show podcast. She's a licensed clinical social worker, working mom, as well as a leading authority on gentle sleep and potty training. Her sleep and potty coaching programs have supported hundreds of thousands of parents globally, and she offers a stress-free, non-punitive, and bribe-free approach. I can't wait for you to hear about her bribe-free approach. I also she has a very special tip that she's going to talk to us about, a parenting hack for when you're out with your little one while you're potty training, and it's going to help you so much. I can't wait for you to hear this show. Please welcome Kim West. Hello, and welcome to the Teaching Your Toddler Show. Today, we have a very special guest, a topic that I've been dying to do for a long, long time. We have Kim West joining us today, and she is going to talk about a topic that I think everybody here probably wants to know more about, and that is potty training. So, Kim, welcome to the show. Why don't you take a few minutes and tell us about yourself?
Hi, thank you. I am a mother of two. I have two daughters. I am a clinical social worker for 32 years and kind of got pulled into first sleep coaching. I developed a gentle sleep coaching approach that doesn't involve or doesn't require you to leave your child to cry it out alone to learn a skill. And during all of that work for, over 25 years, parents would be like, oh my gosh, you helped me get my baby to sleep or my child to sleep. And can you also help with tantrums? And can you also help with potty training? And they were like, please, will you become the potty lady too?
She's the
And
sleep lady and the potty lady. That's amazing.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so I would help families. And then when I started certifying coaches, they were as gentle sleep coaches, they were having the same request. Will you their clients were saying, can you help use this gentle approach with potty coaching? And I said, okay, well, that's it. And so,
Oh, that's awesome. So I didn't realize that you actually coach other people to help people too. So you multiply
I
the
train
effect.
them. Yeah, I
That's
certify
amazing.
them.
Excellent. Oh, good,
Because I
good.
can't
Okay.
do it all by myself.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Great. Well, tell us a little bit about this subject. I mean, where should we start? Do you want to start with practical things or tell us about, what should moms know about this subject to start with?
You know, there's so much to share about this. So maybe we'll go over a few things,
Hmm.
like some of the good helpful things are like readiness. How do we know when our child's ready? But I want to kind of back it up first and say something more generally,
Hmm.
and that is that as in sleep, temperament is also kind of forgotten or pushed aside, and everybody should do like one size fits all. And we really see that in potty coaching too. I actually like to call it coaching, sleep coaching, potty coaching, or potty learning more than training. Um, and that's where I think it kind of sets parents up for it, failure, so to speak, or what we'll end up talking about hopefully is, poop withholding and just like power struggles with our child when we're not kind of customizing our approach and factoring in our child's temperament and frankly our own, right?
Hmm.
That's a big piece of it. So like as an example, a lot of parents feel pressured, their child's going to start some kind of preschool, and so we got to get potty trained by then. And there are some temperaments of children where you got to give that a long runway, and there are some children who can do it quickly, so I'm all about parents feeling like they have choices and then resources based on that, whatever the parenting problem is. And so that's a big part of how my approach is different with potty coaching or potty
Uh,
learning.
that is great. I mean, I think
So
about like with our kids, I had sort of involvement in four of our kids' potty training, and you're absolutely right. They're all different. They have different personalities. They have different emotional development and all the things. Even at
yeah,
that young age, they already are starting to, show that way. We had one that absolutely withheld, and it's about controlling, right? He withheld his eating. It's one of those things that as a human we can withhold some very specific things, eating, going to the bathroom, right? Those are the things we control.
yeah. And on some level, sleep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, totally.
Yeah. Can't
True.
make them go to sleep, you know?
Nope, nope.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh.
So
So,
go
mhm.
ahead.
And I was thinking also, to me, I think it's so important that we start the conversation, so to speak, with our child about potty learning very early.
Hmm.
I don't feel like we're told that as parents, at least not in the United States. I do find, there are some cultural differences around potty learning for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but I think if we can start early teaching our children about their bodies and what it feels like, and calling it out and naming it like, oh, I see you're going poop.
Mm.
Because we can tell.
Yep.
We can't tell when they're peeing, but we can tell when they're pooping in their diaper, and allowing them in the bathroom with you, when you're going to the bathroom, and talking about it and being comfortable with it. That makes it so much easier if
Right.
we kind of set that stage early on. And so then it becomes again not like, oh, we've never talked about this, but now on Tuesday we're going to do, a boot camp, a potty boot camp, as I like to call them. So I think that's really helpful for parents to hear. And I thought maybe I could go over some typical signs of readiness.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because I don't I don't I think sometimes we're told, I know I felt I got this message when my girls were little, was that, they're gonna tell you they're ready, which, is nice. And maybe some kids do. Like my second one is very sensory sensitive, which is an important thing to factor in. And so she didn't like the feeling of a wet diaper. And so she was intrinsically motivated, right? And so if you see those signs in your child too, that like go, and I don't mean necessarily go start potty training, but go start that conversation, right? When they have that interest. So
Hmm.
obviously we want them to be walking, unless you're doing elimination communication and you're starting with a very young baby. So walking that they can say that they need to pee or poo, um, that they can follow very simple 2 to 3 steps, um, directions, that you see some signs of being able to hold in the pee. Um, and like I said earlier, interest, and then very can kind of, I like to say, push your pants down instead of pull your pants down. It's actually an easier skill for a child to learn. And then pull their pants up. So things like that, you want to see if they have those signs of readiness, and they can be anywhere from 18 months to 3 years. I usually find it's more like 18 months to 2 years. You're really seeing it. They also have that sort of intrinsic need to, or desire to, kind of please you and do things with you. Not that this is about pleasing the parent, but it helps because they move into more individuation and separation, and different kind of power struggles happen, right? And it's not impossible to potty coach later. It's just a little harder. It takes a little longer.
Interesting. So the longer
And
you wait, okay.
well, if you miss that that window too.
Hmm.
And not that it's like the window was only 5 days and you missed it, and And I really feel like I missed it in my older one, because I was pregnant and feeling horrible and sick. With my younger one, I was like, I think we're going to put this off. And it was harder,
Mm.
when she was older, not to mention, having to adjust to a
Yes.
new sibling, right? These
And
are all,
regression sometimes
yep.
from that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mm.
think, and a little like envy, right? A little
Mm.
jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's stealing. So, all these things have to be factored in, to readiness and really the prepping. Because, I like to think of it as we do readiness, we assess readiness, we do a lot of prep work before we start.
Mm-hmm.
There's sort of phases. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you're saying, oh, well, I was going to start this weekend, I would see if you are seeing the readiness in your child, and then I would even potentially delay it until you can do some of these prep steps. So I thought maybe I'd go over some of those.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, modeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like going into the potty, when you go to the toilet and saying, oh, like little things like, oh, mommy has to stop playing with you right now because I have to go pee pee, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever your language is. I rather use the body parts names with them too, so that there's not confusion when they go out into the world, like kindergarten and day preschool, and they're able to say, I have to go pee and whatever, is
Mm-hmm.
so modeling,
Mm-hmm.
buying. I like to start with a floor potty if possible. And now, a lot of companies like Jool Baby have the floor potty where you can then take the top off and put it on the toilet. Right. And then the sort of next phase is the steps with the toilet seat on the lid on your toilet seat. Just because it's less maneuvering if you start on the floor, right? They're already learning a lot, and you can have it right near them in the
Mm-hmm.
playroom, as an example. And then eventually you start moving everything into the bathroom. Um, I would read about it with your child. There's lots of great books about potty learning. Uh, um, I would also start to show them, like when they go poop in their diaper and you're talking about it. Oh, I see you have to go poop. Now let's go put the poop in the toilet, and dumping the poop into the toilet and then wave bye bye. It's good for them to see, like, where is this all going, what's happening, right?
Mm.
So it can help with fear around sitting on a toilet and pooping too. um, and then learning some breathing tricks, so particularly exercises where you're blowing out. Like you could put some cotton balls on your hand and have your child try to blow them off. This helps relax them and helps prepare for pushing, like releasing of pee and relaxing and being ready to push out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, talking about urges and feelings in their physical body,
Yeah.
which is part of modeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of the prep work that really honestly is so essential and makes the process of sleep coaching so much easier.
Oh yeah. I several of those I had never heard of it. I mean, the breathing part is really interesting, because like they're certainly not even conscious of it probably until you bring it to
Right.
them to their attention and doing those exercises. That's really awesome. And yeah, the
You can
books.
even talk about it for yourself,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Like, so if I go and sit on the toilet and I say, okay, so now mommy just needs to just take a deep breath and relax, and then be
Mm,
like, oh, see, now the pee-pee's coming out.
mm, mm,
I
mm-hmm.
had to relax sometimes, because
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah,
Some of
right.
the things we just don't think about as an
Not at
adult
all. Right.
is what we need to talk about with our
Hmm.
child.
Right.
Yeah.
So a little more conscious for yourself as well as you're
Yeah.
going through this with your child. Well, those
Yeah.
are great. Those are really good. And so I know, are there some, like, I guess, um, as you're going through these things and you're doing this on a daily basis, like, do you have some sort of timeline? Do you say, let's try this at least 6 times today? Or, I mean, how does it sort of work practically?
With the prepping.
Yeah.
Um,
Or,
some
well,
of
while
it,
you're doing the process, once you start it.
oh, once you start the actual potty
Yeah.
coaching,
Yeah.
a lot of that will depend on your child's temperament.
Mm-hmm.
So the more kind of sensory sensitive kids, as an example, they're going to need a longer runway. They're going to need more time. And so you might spend more time on prepping, and you may have a potty there and talk about it. You could even have them sit on the potty with their diaper on, right? So, and then decide with that child together, like, oh, let's decide today we're going to take off our diaper and have, a little naked time while we play. And let's see if, we can put the pee pee in the potty. I know that people like to use timers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, I tend to not like to use that. I mean, I want it to be more about how your body feels, teaching your child, like, oh, how does your body feel? Like, even when they go and you see them peeing or pooing, or they tell you they are in their diaper, I would talk about that, like, oh, how did that feel before? How did you know? Right? Like, help them start to make those connections. So it takes off some of the pressure, and the power struggle with the timer thing. That doesn't mean that you can't say, let's go try sitting on the potty. It's been a while because I know mommy has to go pee pee. You can have I'd rather be like more like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can some children be potty coached in 3 days? Yes,
Well,
some can.
mm,
Not night, not sleep,
mm,
potty trained, but
mm-hmm.
but we really want to kind of take some of that pressure off and feel like this is not something we accomplish, in 3 days. I think that you may be able to get a lot accomplished in 3 days at home, and then the whole other phase of potty learning will be, what do we do when we go out into the big world? And because then I know I remembered, look, I had to learn where all the toilets were at the grocery store, at the, wherever we were going and doing errands. And so you end up needing more lead time unless you keep a potty in your car, right? So these are all things we end up having to plan and think about as a parent.
Lots of logistics. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Whew, I kind of forgot about all that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
that's a lot. It's a lot of thinking, and you're right. And changing of clothes. I am interested because I when you were saying take off yeah, and have some naked time, like
Mhm.
we traveled to Africa before, and that's those the little guys just run around, and they just sort of learn, right? Because it's so much easier to just be naked and do it.
Right, right.
Yep. Yeah, it's great.
Exactly.
It works.
I mean, of course, it's a little easier for boys than girls, and you have to teach them so that they don't, get pee on their legs kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Uh,
also, it's so important that we try not to, or maybe I should say, I think it's really important that we try to reframe an accident, you
mm,
know, um, and be like, oh, oh, there, the pee went down your leg, and you didn't, well, I would try not to use didn't, next time we just
mm,
have to, like, you have to be like, oh, I needed to go pee pee. I was kind of having fun playing, and I didn't stop, and I forgot. And we just have to get there sooner, and it's okay, right? And
hmm.
it takes an incredible amount of patience for us,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Because now you got to stop everything and clean and
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's the same thing when they fall down, they're looking to you to react, right? If you freak out when they fall down, they're gonna start crying. If you're like,
Mm,
uh-oh, right? Like then they'll be like, okay, let's go on, right? And same
yeah.
thing. You made a mess. Oh well, that's okay. Let's go. Yeah. Wow. Um, I'm just trying to think of like the things here. So you talked about the equipment and a little bit about the time frames. I mean, it is sort of up to the kids. I'm interested because I see in my notes that you use bribe free as a tactics, I guess. And so
Yeah.
tell people about that because I think a lot of people think, oh, I've got to give them an M&M or something, I don't know, to
Yeah.
reward them. So what is your
Yeah.
reward?
Yeah. Yeah, I take the same approach with sleep. In sleep, I call it having a sleep manner chart. And it's not that I'm against like a positive reinforcement chart, but it's not for a reward. It's really and a bribe. It's definitely not a bribe, right? A bribe is like you'll get this if you do that, but you got to do that first. So instead I think about it more like celebrating. And I like having a chart just to be clear about expectations, what we as a family are working towards, right? You know,
Hmm.
as opposed to you must, sit on the potty every 5 minutes, or whatever it is for this amount of time that you're focusing on the potty learning. And it so that it really becomes more like the child says, oh, I see, I did that. And I think you could, high five, hugs, I'm all about that. And having all of the, that positive reinforcement. But that's kind of different. That's very different than you'll only get an M&M if you
Hmm.
do this potty. I remember when my younger daughter was like, I don't know, 8 or 9, and I was showing her this book um, that talked about the child getting a prize, a present, or something from a fairy when they stayed in their bed all night long. And I asked her what she thought of that. And she was like, well, but mommy, they can't get a present every night for the rest of their life. I thought, well, if she's picking up on that, then that the other kid. So it's sort of that same idea, right? Like you don't want to teach our child that forever you'll get an M&M when you go sit on the potty. We really want it to be like you're so proud of yourself that you're
Hmm.
listening to your body and getting to the potty
Yeah.
and honestly what ends up happening is the child doesn't even need the chart both for potty and sleep because they're like, I got it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it doesn't become about rewards. Yeah.
Right. So I would assume then you sort of feel the same way about like a gamification. I remember people would talk about like Cheerios in the potty for little boys and things like that. I don't know. We never
Well,
did that, but
I mean, I understand that. However, I will say that, and this was something that was so interesting for me also to learn. I had girls, as I shared, is that we should teach our boys to pee on the potty sitting first,
mm,
because it will help them learn to poop in the potty in a sitting position because when they're little they're oftentimes pooping standing and peeing standing or crawling or whatever, and so and a lot of times we just forget that with boys, and so in other words the Cheerios aren't needed,
yeah, right.
or all the little Target things you can get. I mean, if you wanted to later, when you're now on they're already potting, potting on the floor potty and you're transitioning to a toilet and you want to teach them how to pee standing, you could do that. But I don't
Hmm.
think it almost makes it not necessary anymore.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Only just training them to stay in the potty. How about not the floor,
Well,
not the
yes.
wall?
Well, that could be a reason to use them.
Yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We had three boys in our house, and it was definitely, yeah, we should have had more
A
of those
focus,
conversations
right?
for sure.
Right.
Yeah. That's great. So I'm intrigued. One of the notes here has gut health as something that is important. And how does that sort of connect everything with our with potty learning, potty coaching?
Yeah. So apparently my colleague, Dr. Howard Bennett, he's a pediatrician, shared with me what a huge number of children have constipation that their parents don't even know about. Um, and uh, and constipation is on a continuum too. And of course, good gut health and having enough fiber and enough water and enough, vegetables in our diet will help us to avoid constipation. Because constipation is not only is it a big sleep wrecker, but it's a potty learning wrecker, because when a child becomes constipated, of course, then it hurts to go poop. And then you get into this pattern of poop withholding,
Hmm.
and that which makes the constipation worse. And so it's this, really tough.
Cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and also our toddlers and preschoolers, it's common for them to get into a pattern of eating what they call a white diet,
Mm,
which makes us more constipated, right?
mhm.
All the white foods and drinks that make us more constipated. So that's kind of the connection with gut health.
Awesome. Okay, good. And then you did allude to it earlier that there is poop withholding, right? And that happens
Yeah.
for different reasons. Like you were saying, if it's painful, of course they don't want to
Yeah.
go because it hurts.
Yeah.
But what else would cause that?
Power struggles, as you had also mentioned. And sometimes it could be just like I had one hard poop
Mm,
and that's it, right? And you can, of course, get anal fissures, little like tears, and it can kind of build on it on itself. And so, I would say mostly it's constipation. Um, Now, whether the constipation got caused from a power struggle of not, no, I'm not going to go sit on the potty,
mm,
that could be a factor. But I do think it's what it's more commonly is constipation.
okay.
um, and even you can have, I mean, we got to talk about poop. Sorry, everybody.
Yep.
But you can have diarrhea and constipation, right?
Mm,
So
hmm.
the diarrhea kind of goes around the stool,
Mm,
the hardened stool, and then but you still have the hardened stool. So you really have to treat that and take that really seriously,
hmm.
and even in some cases, allow the child to poop in a diaper.
Hmm.
There are cases where they will have to use a laxative to kind of break the pattern so that it's not painful.
Hmm.
And then you can, so a lot of people are like, no, then that's like regressing if we're bringing back the diaper, but there's a time and a place to do that,
Yes.
and you could always have it be, okay, so if you notice that they come to you and say, can I have a diaper? I have to go poop. And then they go behind the couch, you could start, again, if that's what we need to do to get them to start pooping again, let's do it.
Hmm.
And then, go, remember, take that poop. Let's go put it in the toilet. Why don't you flush the toilet and
Hmm.
do that whole, and then you can slowly move to, okay, you can have a diaper to go poop, but we're going to stay in the bathroom,
Mm, okay.
right? And then you
Yep.
could
And
even
they associate
see,
it with that room.
could you sit on the toilet with your diaper on and poop that way? Some people have even, depending on how long the pattern has been going on, we've even like cut a hole in the diaper,
Oh,
you
I've never thought of that.
and then
Wow.
sit on the toilet and, because some kids just need that comfort. I've even had parents kind of tape the diaper into like a hammock into the toilet, and so it catches because some kids are also, they don't like the sound of the poop hitting the water or the
Mm-hmm.
splash, or,
Mm-hmm.
there's like, that's
Mm-hmm.
where we're really factoring in temperament and
Mm-hmm.
not sort of saying, well, get over it, right?
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah.
big deal, right? Because for them, it is a big deal. We want to try to be thoughtful about that and say, you know what? I don't always like, and by the way, there's plenty of parents who don't like those automatic toilets in
Mm-hmm.
public restrooms. I mean, they're loud and they're sometimes can be a little unsettling, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, I was going
uh,
to actually say that our youngest did not want to go in public ever.
yeah.
Like it smelled or he just didn't like the
Mhm.
vibe or whatever and so
Yeah.
we had to plan for that because it was a thing, if you're on a road trip or whatever, it's like, well, bub, you're going to have to go.
Yeah, or like the hand dryers too, which is
Hmm.
all part of that process. One little cute hack is if those little Post-its you can get. I don't have one here in front of me, but the little size. If you put some of those in your wet bag, diaper bag, whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
and when you go or your purse and you go to a public restaurant where they have those automatic toilets, they have the little eyeball thing. I would put the
Oh, cover
Post-it over
it.
it. Yeah.
That's
And
smart.
again,
And
acknowledge to the child, like, you know what? Don't worry, honey. Mommy's going to cover it so it won't
yeah.
automatically flush. And you
Ooh.
can get out of the stall and mommy will remove the Post-it and,
Hmm.
little things like that. Yeah.
That's really smart. I guess my kids are older that wasn't as much of a thing as it is now, but I love that
Yeah.
hack. That's great.
Yeah. That's a
That's a
good one.
good one. Oh my goodness. Well, gosh, what else? What else have we not covered that we should talk about?
I would love to talk briefly about whether we should night potty coach our children.
Okay.
Um, So a lot of times parents will feel like, oh, well, we're doing it for day, then we have to do it for night too. And there's some information out there and online that that there's medical consequences if you don't, which actually my pediatrician friends say is not true. And that night training is really based on whether your child's, by the way, what I mean by night training is should we not have our child sleep in a diaper at night when they're
Mm-hmm.
sleeping?
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Okay.
Um, and really it's physiological, right? So is the bladder big enough and is the child producing and secreting enough of the hormones that kind of tell our kidneys to go sleepy and no going pee at night? The other thing that also is a factor is ruling out whether your child has sleep apnea. Um, because believe it or not, kids have sleep apnea. So usually from enlarged tonsils and adenoids. There can be other causes, but that's the most common with children, which will make it difficult for them to be able to stay dry at night. Not to mention that, there is a genetic pattern of, like, for instance, if one parent took longer to stay dry at night, like let's say they were 8 or 10, that it's likely that your child will have the same thing, that they
Mm.
will take longer to stay dry at
Interesting.
night. And
Hmm.
so I like to use this example again of my younger daughter who was, more sensory sensitive and petite, although they say that has nothing to do with it. And she really did not want to wear a diaper. And so she was very easy to potty train because she was so motivated herself.
Mm.
And of course, she had an older sister, which helps uh,
Hmm.
to watch them. Uh, so we got her into underwear during the day with, much easier than her older sister. And then she didn't want to wear it at night. And she just, it didn't work.
Mm.
She kept having accidents or then, would or would not get up during the night to go pee. And so I told her we had to put her back in her diaper. She was so upset about that. And so I usually don't recommend using pull-ups because pull-ups are actually meant to have them feel wet, right? It doesn't have that same absorbency as a
Mm-hmm.
nighttime diaper does. And that's not the learning we're trying to have happen here. So I put her back in a full diaper, and I told her that, we had to wait until her bladder was big enough and was able to, hold that pee all night long. And this is like the marker for parents, is that if your child is waking up in the morning with a dry diaper for 10 days, ideally in a row, then they're ready.
10 days dry.
Yep. So notice how it's not you're training them.
Mm-hmm.
It's child led. The
Right.
child,
It's their body is
their
telling
body
them. Yeah.
is ready. Yeah.
Wow.
And I honestly did the same thing for naps. I
Mm.
just want to take that pressure off, because this is not like they're doing it to like get into a struggle with you, when they're asleep
Yeah.
and their body is just not ready to stay dry while they're sleeping.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of parents just need to sort of let go a little bit to know this is going to happen. It will. I mean,
Yes.
it's very rare that a child would make it into, a certain age without having this have happen. So just rest assured,
Yes.
it's going to happen no matter what it looks like. It may not be pretty while it happens, but it's going to happen,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. We have to have a
Yep.
little faith in our child too. Hmm.
Exactly. Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. Gosh.
Yep.
Well, I just so appreciate you coming on today. This has been a great conversation. Love it. I think it's so helpful for everybody that's listening. Tell us where we can find out more about you and anything that you are able to offer the listeners.
Yeah. So if they go to my website, sleeplady.com, because remember I started in sleep,
Mhm.
and you go under free resources and you go down the bottom there, there's a whole page on potty coaching. I do have to call it training because most people call it that. And there's a free guide there on how to potty train the gentle way. I also have very affordable course for parents for only $47. And then, and this I think is super important, is that you can also talk to one of my gentle potty coaches if you've started this process and are stuck and are feeling like things are not progressing and you don't know why. And one of the common ones is, for instance, poop withholding. And so you'll have an opportunity to do that too.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, we will make sure that these links are in the show notes for anybody that's listening, to make sure that you can find Kim West and any of her resources for your challenges. Like she said, if you get stuck, you've got a friend, you've got a helper. So again,
Yep.
thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
Bye-bye. This has been the Teaching Your Toddler podcast with Mary Jo Tinlin. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you'll find us on our website at teachingyourtoddler.com, as well as on Facebook at Teaching Your Toddler, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Teaching Toddler. So join us again, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.